The ideas that gave birth to our nation are the ideas that our nation is resistant to right now, and we should talk about that all the time.
In a world where narratives are shaped by corporations and gatekeepers, independent voices matter more than ever. Badlands Media brings together citizen journalists, researchers, and independent thinkers.
The truth is triggering.
Question the narrative. Explore the facts.
It's authenticity, courage, resilience.
Search for the truth others won't.
It's not about being first or being right.
The information war is changing.
It's about being authentic.
Embrace the friction.
Embrace the friction.
Shut the f*** up.
Authentically antagonizing. Join the movement.
I'm going to say how I feel.
Follow Badlands Media.
This is about the future.
The Badlands. What are the Badlands? Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Mr. Vice President, I'm going off script again, I know, but I just want to personally thank you. We've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted, and your steady hand and your leadership during those was a great source of strength for me. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your character. Thank you for your selfless service. Thank you for commitment. Thank you for being a mentor to me, Mr. Vice President.
It's called the swamp. And you know what happened? And you know what I did? A big favor. I caught the swamp. I caught them all. Let's see what happens. Nobody else could have done that but me. I caught all of this corruption that was going on, and nobody else could have done it. Did I get that one right? Every 4 years, we gather on these steps to carry out the orderly and peaceful transfer of power. Today's ceremony, however, has very special meaning, because today we are not merely transferring power from one administration to another, but we are transferring power from Washington, D.C., and giving it back to you, the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government, while the people have borne the cost. Washington flourished, but the people did not share in its wealth. This American carnage stops right here and stops right now. The forgotten men and women of our country will be forgotten no longer. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first.
This is a president of the United States who is a danger to the Republic.
America first.
He knows he's an illegitimate president.
The oath of office I take today is an oath of allegiance to all Americans.
The great Trump recovery.
America will never be a socialist country. I will fight for you with every breath in my body.
Russia, Russian, pro-Russian, Russian, the Russians.
Russia.
And I will never, ever let you down.
A dangerous virus is spreading rapidly in China, and U.S. officials are very worried that it could come here.
This is really the worst attack we've ever had. This is worse than Pearl Harbor. This is worse than the World Trade Center. There's never been an attack like this. The time for empty talk is over. Now arrives the hour of action. What they're doing is using COVID to steal an election. Together, we will make America strong again. You know what it's about? Fraud, fake ballots. We will make America wealthy again.
They are trying to steal the election.
Now, under the leadership of President Trump, we are fully realizing President Kennedy's prescient view of special operations forces.
We will make America proud again.
And watch, please, those mail-in ballots.
We will make America safe again.
And in millions and millions of ballots. Their vote is under what they thought they needed.
They're dumping more ballots in there, okay? And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you. God bless you.
If we are right about the fraud, Joe Biden can't be president.
Congress, the chair declares the joint session dissolved.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Devolution Power Hour. As always, and unfortunately, I'm joined by Burning Bright. Burning Bright, how you doing, man?
I'm all right. The Bruins tied up the series last night. So, you know, it's always good after you choke one away in the first game. Could have been up 2-0, but we also could have been down. We could have been looking a little bit more like Chris Paul's Penguins. That's rough. I didn't see that coming. They were looking good in the regular season.
Yeah, I didn't really follow them much in the regular season, but yeah, they're looking
well. The
rough.
Bruins have been reverse swept before in my lifetime, so it is possible. And we were actually reverse swept by the Phillies.
My Minnesota Wild are playing right now, so I cannot guarantee that I will not be distracted. I will be keeping tabs on the game while you're talking. Like I'll do my part really well and execute and make some good points, but then during your 20-minute rants, I'll probably be distracted. Just forewarning you.
I think we have agreed in the past, we have many disagreements, but that hockey should be illegal in Texas. I think we've largely agreed on that. And Florida should be illegal. So, you know, that's one of those things.
That's fair. I mean, I'm okay with hockey being down there. It's just bullshit that they took the Wild, like back in the day. They took our Wild team down to Texas. You didn't hear about the North Stars? Minnesota North Stars were a team forever. And then the owner's like, yeah, I think I'm going to move to Texas. Took them down there. Not long after, I think they drafted Madonna. It was right before or after? I don't remember. But they ended up winning a cup down there. Right. And then in like 90, I want to say 93 or something, or 97, we got the Wild team back.
Are there still any like legacy Stars fans in Minnesota because they kept being Stars fans when they left? You know,
I mean, there's some old North Star fans who like super hate the Dallas Stars because of it.
Yeah.
I
feel like if I was an Oakland Raiders fan, I couldn't cheer for them in Vegas. That's like sitting in the cuck chair. I feel like when your team
also
does
like
that.
Oakland doesn't have a team, you know.
Yeah, well, it's
so
all
like
the
maybe
blacks
back then you
in the
follow
area.
your team.
Yeah.
But then once you get your own team, it's like, well, fuck those guys, they left.
Exactly. I can't identify coming from an area that has 4 teams in all the majors. We even have like teams in sports nobody's heard of, like soccer and stuff. Never mind like having to root for teams from other states.
Yeah, it'd be stupid. But the Stanley Cup hockey playoffs, there's no better playoffs. Like there really isn't. It's just the officiating sucks half the time. Like you can't get any consistency. It can be really gay sometimes, but it's also the most fun to watch. But anyway, we do have plenty to discuss tonight. We might have to do things different. Our SPLC sponsorship has run dry for some reason, so we are no longer getting those checks. So we're probably gonna have to be a little more grifty than usual. But you know,
we didn't get a script either for tonight's show, so we're gonna have to, figure it out in real time, I guess.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. But no, for real, we have. It's been a good week in terms of like hopium, maybe like the rugs. We've had a lot of rugs laid back down.
There's been some like a half chub, a little bit.
Yeah, Jimmy's rustled classified documents.
Jimmy's rustled. Exactly. Jimmy's haven't been rustled sufficiently in some time. And even though, and we're not going to go into it, but even though I said recently, I really liked the writing of the central narrative when it came to the Iran storyline compared to 2025. I was saying poor writing, a lot of reruns, but not even interesting reruns to me. 2026, I was like, this is some good writing. But I will admit, this is the first week with the Iran stuff that I've been writing about for 6 weeks that I'm like, I don't know if I want to write another one about this. It's starting.
You liar. You were like, if we were talking about what we want to talk about before the show, and you're like, well, I ran this, I ran that. I'm like, no, we're not talking Iran tonight. Nothing's changed.
Granted, though, the thing I'm writing about this week is the Taco Tuesday thing, which is more about that. It's more about, it has now become a narrative in the media that the narrative keeps flipping back and forth. Taco Tuesday.
Yeah, I can see that. I think my favorite storyline right now out of Iran is Trump created a fake crisis and solved the fake crisis all on True Social. And like the
Iranians are just calling him out on it.
Everybody's calling him out. It's the first time I think I've seen everybody on both sides be like, yeah, that's totally fake.
Totally
comes
fake.
out with this super AI like created 8 girls that are being held captive and about to be like killed. Then he goes on True Social and is like, I'm asking the Iranians to not kill these 8 totally real people. And then the next day he's like, because of my True Social post, the Iranians have decided not to kill these 8 people. You're welcome,
it's like picking
everybody.
a fight with your invisible friend and winning.
It's hilarious. And then to see like the administration out here flaunting that, like Carolyn Levitt going on TV and being like, because of Donald Trump's leadership, 8 not AI women have been saved. Like, it's just super silly.
Yeah. I should clarify, picking a fight with your invisible friend would be extremely difficult. I meant imaginary friend, because an imaginary friend, you should have a high degree chance of winning, but I would be surprised if you could defeat a real life invisible friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'd wager that's impossible unless they're really bad at fighting.
No, if you got a good clinch game and they don't keep their distance, then you got them, right? You just got to stick to them.
I mean, if you're in a fight and you're invisible, you should be able to win with just one blow. Like all it should take is like one sneak attack in the right spot and they're down.
Yep.
But if you don't execute that, then you're probably screwed. But Trump executed perfectly.
You'd still have quite an advantage in the rest of the fight, unless you can't fight. In which case, you should use your invisibility to do things besides getting into physical altercations with people. It's just not a smart thing to do. Defeats the whole purpose.
It's true. It's true. We could probably do a whole show on the,
the faux pas of the invisible community.
and fighting fake wars. What I will promise we won't do this episode is decode a suicide. I see that going around and I'm like disgusted by it. The whole David Wilcock thing. You have people out here that have never talked about David Wilcock once in their entire lives. Like you go search their True Social or social media, never mention a word. And then all of a sudden, like because of the whole, oh my God, we've had a bunch of scientists disappear and everybody's like high on that grifting train right now. All of a sudden they're doing entire shows and decodes around this, like literally raising money off of his death. And I think it's disgusting. Actually, I had messages.
We happen to know somebody who knows him. I mean, he's been public about it, but Jordan Sather knows Wilcock or knew Wilcock, and good and bad of him. I remember following Jordan back in the day.
Yeah.
I didn't follow him down all those like rabbit holes that he was into, the UFO stuff and a lot of that alternative science community. I knew him from the Q Drops coverage, but he would mention, since he was on my feed, 10 years ago, he was always talking about that sphere of people pretty fairly, good and bad. But yeah, he's kind of been talking about that. Like it does. I can understand not the grifting element, but I can understand why people in this InfoWar space, once they've heard of somebody, if they've heard of somebody in this space and then something like that happens, like you can't help but leap there. It's some sort of conspiratorial rabbit hole or whatever. I don't blame people necessarily for doing that, but it definitely it shatters some of those cognitive dissonance walls when somebody knows the person and then you see everybody else being like, oh my God, it was probably like a Q proof, and it's like, I don't know, I knew the guy and he was really depressed. Like this is but
I actually have some messages with him back when I was writing the Devolution series. It was kind of interesting. He had messaged me and I was like, I don't even know who you are. Like, who's David Wilcock? And then I went to Jordan and was like, you know this guy? And he's like, oh yeah, David Wilcock. I've like used to work with him and stuff. And then I was still like skeptical. because like this is a UFO guy. Why is he like? What's this? With the Devolution, like why do you care about the Devolution stuff? And he's like sending me pictures and selfies of him. Like this still doesn't prove it's true. Like you could have grabbed this off. But anyway, he ended up like being totally normal. But I haven't talked to him since like 2023.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's sad. I think it kind of just shows the state of the movement when you get situations like that. I'm actually working on trying to get the police body cam footage of the incident because according to the reporting, they showed up at his house and like the police were there, and within minutes of him being there, he like used the gun in his hand on himself. Like so.
I didn't even know that. I thought that they had already responded to a finalized event.
Nope, it's out there. I can show you here the actual police reporting, and this is why okay, it's possible. Yeah, some of this stuff is fake, but I will never immediately jump to decoding this shit and assuming. It's just so irresponsible. It drives me nuts. Let me show you the.
Unfortunately, that is the cottage industry, and the Chris Paul often talks about within the party of false decorum construct, the incentive structures. And there are clearly incentive structures built around, oh my God, or holy shit, fire engine emoji and all that kind of stuff. Suicide weekend, blah, blah, blah.
Yep. They got a call at 10:44. The emergency communication specialist who took the call suspected the caller was experiencing a mental health crisis. Deputies arrived at approximately 11:02 and made contact with the male outside a residence who was holding a weapon. Within minutes of the deputy's arrival, he used the weapon on himself and was pronounced deceased. So there should be body cam footage of this. Eventually it'll come out. I think people will be able to tell whether or not it was worth a decode. But anyway, let's move on from this. We should get a quick word from our sponsors, and I want to jump right into the first election story. And yeah, first up tonight, we got SPLC. Do you want to start a hate group?
Yep.
A fake hate group?
Join our Facebook group.
Native Path. This episode is brought to you by Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil. Omega-3s, astaxanthin for heart, joints, and memory. Raise your hand if you're taking fish oil. Did you raise your hand, Brady Braid? I can't see because of this.
I actually have fish oil, but I haven't taken some in quite some time.
Okay, well, I have some news for you. It might not be doing what you think it is when you don't take that. Research out of the Journal of Agriculture and Food Chemistry found that fish oil is 50% less absorbable than a different kind of omega-3. And today's sponsor has that better version for you. If you've been taking fish oil for heart, joint, or memory support, here's something you need to know. Research shows fish oil is 50% less absorbable than krill oil because fish oil's omega-3s are in triglyceride form while krill oils are in phospholipid form, which is the same format your cell walls are made of. That means krill oil gets into your cells immediately, and head-to-head studies krill oil outperformed fish oil at improving cholesterol, reducing inflammation, and easing joint pain, often at lower doses. Native Path Antarctic Krill Oil is sourced from pristine Antarctic waters, contains the powerful antioxidant astaxanthin, and comes in tiny, soft gel form, so you don't get any of those fishy burps. If I'm being honest, the reason I took fish oil like a long time ago, like once, and once I started burping out the fish stuff, I was like, no, never again, not doing it. That alone to me is well worth switching to Native Path Krill Oil. Learn more, grab your Badlands special discount plus free shipping today at getkrill.com/badlands. That's getkrill.com/badlands.
Jess says, quote, I'm so proud of John with these big words.
I have struggled with some of these big words in the past, but that's not my fault. Like if you're going to give me a big word in an ad read and not explicitly tell me how I'm supposed to pronounce that thing,
right,
I'm going to mess it up for sure. And most of the time on purpose. It's just the stubborn in me. But anyway.
I'm shocked about that.
Yeah, me too.
Start the Thought Watch, guys. This is a thing I keep forgetting to do on Wednesday nights. I believe we're featured on Rumble, but until them little gassed up mids come strolling in off them streets.
Yeah.
They're going to usher us off. So we're going to start Thought Watch. It's usually like 44 minutes.
44 minutes and then they take us off?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's better than nothing. I know a lot of people are into that thought content. We're still looking for for some thoughts to do a show with us one of these days. We should literally do a thought show and call
crossover.
it Gassed Up Mids. I think that'd be hilarious.
We'll get that featured over the thoughts.
Thought Wars. So the story I want to start with is I was just so excited about this. It came out on, I think, was it Tuesday? What day is it today? When did I post that? Originally, April 21st. Today's the 22nd. So this was yesterday. Yeah. We had a new declassified memo from DNI Tulsi Gabbard. It was put up by John Solomon. Did you see over the weekend when Kash Patel went on Maria Bartiromo?
I did, yes.
And how he was like, yeah, guys, just stay tuned. We got some election stuff, maybe one or two things this week.
Well, related to that, before you get to that, when was the hit piece on Kash? Was that Sunday? Did you see the big hit piece on him?
Oh yeah, I think it was Friday.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
of course the media frames it as he was responding to that, but that's not how these things work here. So it feels like it's kind of notable that Kash was very in the news this week for actuals and declassifications, and to close last week heading into the weekend, they were like, who's really a ne'er-do-well is that guy right there. They all kind of coordinated.
I think the Kash Patel thing is more in line with they knew or saw the SPLC thing coming. I think this memo that they put out here.
Oh yeah. I just meant this whole week Kash was very front and center.
Yeah. And he filed a lawsuit in return for that Atlantic hit piece. But
yeah.
The thing that's interesting to me is right off the bat with this declassified memo, because it talks all about election vulnerabilities. It goes back to 2020. January of 2020 is when this report was put together. And so the stuff we're going to go through here was before COVID, really. It was right in the middle at the beginning of the impeachment trial, if I'm not mistaken. Well, yeah, wasn't it? I can't remember the dates now. It's so long ago, so stupid. But they go through here and just to summarize it, they're basically saying, technically it is possible. Our elections are pretty damn vulnerable. They could steal an election at scale. That's my takeaway. They have a whole bunch of justifications as to why, but that would never happen, which we'll get to. But this was declassified on March 16th of 2026. So this was over a month ago that this was declassified, but it wasn't put out until yesterday. And so in my head, I'm like, why would they declassify it way back then, but not put it out right away? To me, it's almost like they needed to inject some of that hopium back into the movement. Are they trying to placate us? Is this actuals? I don't know. I want to think this is actuals because I'm still on that rug partially. But that's the first thing right off the bat is the timing of the Kash Patel thing. Then we have this and the SPLC story.
Yeah, and again, the timing is important. Two ways the timing is important. On the narrative front, we've said for a long time, certainly my biggest signal in the info war is reverse indicators. And the funny thing about being on the hopium rug is that I tend to get more confident in remaining on that rug when the media is pre-attacking these things, right? Because, and again, I've actually mentioned the Atlantic many times. I know Chris brings them up a lot because the people who started it and everything, they're truly one of the signal setters within the media landscape. It's not just like, oh, this outlet or that outlet. They tend to kind of be leaders when it comes to deploying a new attack vector, and then you get that wrap-up smear that we talked about a lot last week. So you always have one that's leading the charge there. They're not the biggest outlet in the world or the most read, but they are the most read by all the other ones.
Yeah.
So they've got some influential DC people, obviously. And so that's one thing with the timing. It lends a little more weight to the actuals that they were trying to front run. But then the timing you and I were talking about last week, you had mentioned sort of the order of operations way back with the stuff that we were originally tracking. And I wonder where this kind of fits in with some of those timelines as well. I know you couldn't remember the original dates, but if we were to see an actual unfurling of the crimes that kind of got us all into this in the first place, you'd want to see them in some order like this.
Yeah, so that it went Russiagate. That's where we got all the declassifications from, and then we had, in the meantime, we had a lot of the, what was it called? The Arctic frost. So that kind of throws it off because that was after, Trump was out of there. But yeah, then this last week we just had the impeachment thing, which was notable. And that's what made it, to me, it seemed like, okay, we've gone from Russiagate to impeachment. That's the chronological order that it happened in. Next, it should be COVID, really. But this is kind of skipping a step, election stuff. Either way, it's really interesting. Side note, the Wild tied it up at 2. So amazing. But this one here, like I said, it got my jimmies rustling because there's a new declassified document. It's only 5 pages, which is a bummer, but it's better than nothing. If this is just the start, it gets me really excited. So I want to read through a couple of these things, and it's a couple pages in. We get to the part where it's really juicy to me anyway, and what I want to focus on, key in on. But just to start, this memo assesses the potential impact of cyber operations against U.S. election infrastructure for the 2020 presidential election, including the voting process and integrity of results. It does not assess adversary intentions or views of U.S. vulnerabilities. So it's basically just talking about potential impacts of cyber ops and whether or not our elections are vulnerable. And again, this is from the intelligence community in January of 2020. And keep in mind, we were told repeatedly in the immediate aftermath of the 2020 election that it was the most secure election in history, that it was not possible that they could steal an election at scale. Blah, blah. I mean, you guys have heard this a million times, but we all lived through 2020. We witnessed it. We all know for a fact that Joe Biden did not receive 81 million real lawful American votes. That election was fucking stolen.
Back
Hands
when
down.
It was popular in this community to talk about stolen elections, and then it became decidedly unpopular to do so.
And we never
just with the
stopped.
next one up. Now, did anything change fundamentally between those 2 elections in terms of how the system functions?
Nope, nothing's changed. We even had a banger of a post today from Trump talking about how rigged elections are again after last night.
And he's actually specifically referenced how not close it was, right? Like, so he's even talking about elections that we win. You're still supposed to talk about them being fake, even when you win the fake election.
Except that might be subversive, Bernie Brad. I've been told we're subversive doing that sometimes. But anyway, so they talk about, Russia, North Korea, China, Iran, and those are the countries that have capability. They go into mainly it's like voter information, poll books, databases. They don't really touch on the actual voting tabulation stuff until a little bit later. And what they do say about it here, systems that tabulate, transmit, or display election results are vulnerable to localized exploitation, but would be difficult to manipulate on a wide enough scale to alter the election outcome. I want you guys to keep that in mind because, again, that is what we were told so many times. Like, it'd be very difficult to do it at scale. I mean, of course there's fraud. It's just you wouldn't be able to pull it off at scale. They do have caveats in here where they basically say the reasons you couldn't pull it off at scale, and it's retarded. And I almost just want to skip down to that because I don't care about the rest of this.
I mean,
they show examples in here.
Does it rely on the assumption that you would need a large number of bad actors coordinating with one another?
No, you'll see in a second. It's not that. They do give a couple examples of how many times they could hack every single voting machine that are used in like 100 different jurisdictions. They show a Doom game on a poll book, which is hilarious. I don't know if you ever played Doom growing up.
Oh yeah. Played it on my brother's computer, my brother's Mac.
This is where it's juicy. Okay, this is the actual tabulation systems. We assess that vote tabulation systems would be difficult to manipulate on a wide enough scale to compromise election results. The systems in each voting location are not connected to the internet. That is not true. Or to each other, and many methods for exploiting them rely on physical proximity. Although an adversary could manipulate voting results across multiple jurisdictions and enough states to influence a presidential election, I'm going to pause it right there because this is an admission right off the bat.
Yeah, just stop there, guys. Memo over.
Well, it's seriously, it's insane to me that they actually included. This is from the intelligence community.
Yeah.
Although an adversary could manipulate voting results across multiple jurisdictions and enough states to influence a presidential election, and here we get into why they say that probably wouldn't happen. We judge that conducting such a campaign would be difficult and that post-election audits and paper trails very likely would uncover such an effort. So I'm just thinking back to 2020 and the thing where they repeatedly told us that this wasn't possible for all sorts of reasons, like just ridiculous. But we never had real audits after 2020.
Well, I mean, it's right in the answer is right in the question or right in the premise, right, with these things. And of course, to us, to everybody watching the show, this is old hat. But it reminds me, actually, last night I had sent Mrs. Bright an article that I saw, I think it was the Epoch Times, about coming disclosure of childhood deaths due specifically to the COVID vaccination. That so far they've admitted in a recent closed door hearing, or not hearing, but meeting, at least 25 that they know of. And the whole reason that there's this big battle behind the scenes at the FDA and CDC is because they know that there's way more if they start looking. But, one of the things in our personal lives that we've said when combated by family members for years about our decisions with our kids is this classic case of, well, there's no proof or studies that have been done that demonstrate these dangers. And our counter is usually, yeah, because no studies have been done, right? So it's the age-old thing. And obviously, if you control the entire election infrastructure, then all you have to know is who watches the Watchmen. And if that's nobody, then you're all set. Technically, they're not lying there. They're saying an audit, a real audit would uncover the fraud. That's just the thing we've been waiting for.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy about this. And when you think about what actually happened, like, you didn't have a media looking into any of this. There was no audits, no paper trails, like none of this stuff. You had, and I said this on my show, so I'm probably going to sound a little repetitive, but you had so many aspects that went into stealing the 2020 election, so far beyond just whatever they did in the machines and the mail-in ballots and all those other things. The cover-up is where all the action happened. You had the media in on it, the intelligence community in on it, the Uniparty in on it, the Department of Justice looking the other way. You had the tech bros and everybody like that who censored anybody who talked about it. I mean, it was a full-on assault. And so, yeah, like, the intelligence community is admitting that they could steal it at scale. The reason you wouldn't is because it'd probably be a little difficult and, there'd be audits and stuff. Well, we didn't have any of that stuff. And they made it pretty damn easy. And that's just crazy. This is the first time that I've seen the intelligence community, at least to my knowledge, acknowledge that it is possible to steal an election at scale.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the SPLC would appreciate you saying that.
Oh, we have Pepe Le Q stalking us in the chat. This faggot again.
He always comes in to be like, oh, what are they saying about Q? It's so funny. I had said that a couple months ago, the small dog syndrome for the most discussed and monetized intelligence operation in the history of the world. And the people that do that and make their livings doing that somehow think that nobody pays attention to them. So they gang stalk other people's shows that they consider irrelevant to attempt to bully them into talking about things that they are talking about.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
when we get to the SPLC thing, that's where I'm going to really talk about our haters, because it's the exact same behavior that these people do to us. Anyway, so this memo, I don't want to say we have sources, because we don't, but I know somebody who knows more than we do. Or at least is more attached to what's going on behind the scenes. Again, not an insider. He just knows people who I would consider are insiders. He says this is like probably the most tame memo that is out there, that we should be getting better than this. And I think all of us in the community who've been waiting for some sort of movement on election, like, hey, let's get to the bottom of what happened in 2020. When are we going to get that stuff? That's kind of the stuff we've been expecting. This is tip of the iceberg type details. And in terms of chronology of just the election integrity investigation into 2020, this is a great place to start. Like, hey, this is what the intelligence community knew about the vulnerabilities and potential vulnerabilities of the 2020 election. Okay, well, now let's start. What else happened? We've had that story of the China IDs from back in the day. Oh man, what's the other one that John Sullivan just talked about this too? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Can't remember now. But we should be seeing more on this front as they start going through this chronologically, if the investigation is going the way it should be going.
Yeah, and the question with this memo, as you said at the beginning, is this representative of well, I mean, I know it's literal declassification, but are we starting to see the unroll of the investigations that were already done? Like, and this obviously isn't a memo about an investigation, but it would ostensibly be the premise for one. And if we do see those things in order leading up to 2026, I don't, I'm not getting on the rug that our election system is going to be solved by the midterms. But I think we've talked about this for years, even leading up to the 2024 election, that if public mandate does factor into these things regarding why they haven't like gone whole hog into the dismantling and rebuilding of the election system, then we've always said that you would want disclosures to ramp and coincide with an election cycle. So the question is that the midterms, or are they going to use the midterms as part of that ramp? That's way far, that we'll be talking about that all year. But that's one way to look at some of these breadcrumbs early on in the year.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to show here about this memo is what it's also kind of setting the table for. They talk about like how to mitigate the threats, right? Enhancing physical security and cyber protections of election systems, adopting best practices, cyber hygiene, cyber protection, third-party vendor verification, making sure you have appropriate and approved vendors who do this stuff and protect your election stuff, messaging and education, partnerships with state and local election officials, cybersecurity firms, and the media could help minimize commercial disruptions as well as counter cyber-enabled informations. So they're saying all this stuff. Here's the threat. It is possible. All these things. We need to protect you guys. So what do? If you remember my Devolution Part 11, I get into this a little bit with the whole election infrastructure, cyber security, the CIS Secure Suite membership that they were giving away for free to state and local elections. And this is how they were able to get CrowdStrike as the EDR services for our elections. Like this is how they got it on. They were setting the table for it and pushing people to here. So I would love to see the election investigation also get to this point too, because this is rarely, if ever, talked about in mainstream circles when it comes to our elections. That CrowdStrike was literally running EDR services on election machines throughout the country in 2020. The same CrowdStrike that was part of the whole Russiagate scandal and the impeachment thing.
Would you say a lot of the fraudulent apparatus when it comes to the election system was built into the NGO structure, or was it mostly like inside the house, more inside the house in terms of the administrative state? Because, yeah, well, just because given the unwind here and the fact that we've been waiting for it forever, if this is the beginning of an unwind, it's interesting timing when it comes to 2025. You had the whole Doge thing, at least from a narrative perspective. There wasn't a lot of teeth to that. But then this week, as we'll talk about later on, if we're getting some teeth when it comes to dismantling and really going after the NGO side of the administrative state, then you could see how those two plot lines start coming together in a convergence, and why they might be seeding them and alternating them like throughout the year. We could start to map like, ooh, they're going after this one, and oh, they're going, because I know, SPLC doesn't seem like it's all that election related, right? But as a lot of your series talks about, when you go beyond elections, you talk about the concept of color revolutions a lot in the Devolution series, right? And of course, those are not just narrative, but they're cultural. So obviously we all know that there's a deep state and that it all works in coordination with each other. But I think it's going to be interesting to map going forward, like memo on election fraud, memo on the actual narrative. And if each of those actuals are election fraud apparatus, and then each of the narratives is NGO color revolution apparatus, those two things are actually the same story. They're just not usually framed that way. Yeah,
I mean, it's possible that we've talked about all the different aspects of how our election was stolen in 2020, but it's possible we don't quite comprehend how many people were involved in that. Like, the infrastructure stuff, like the CISA and the people actually on the machines, like that's one aspect. The NGO side of it with the the mail-in ballot schemes and the manufactured consensus with the riots and there's a lot to it there, and it was all very well coordinated. They were doing Zoom calls all throughout 2020, even probably as far back as 2019. That Time article that came out in February of 2021, where they're like, yeah, guys, we didn't steal the election, we fortified it. They kind of outlined the whole game there. So I think it's the death by 1,000 cuts, just in the involvement, and then how much it took to cover it up, and how many people need to like kind of look the other way to cover that up. That's all part of it, and that all needs to be dismantled for us to actually fix our elections.
Well, on a fair note, just in terms of how long we've waited for these kinds of things, and instead of just appealing to like this broad faith-based, there's a plan. We believe there is a plan. It just depends on your interpretation of what that is, by Donald Trump, I mean, and the people around him. It does, when you, just the way you laid it out, I mean, it is huge. It is this huge, multifaceted, death by 1,000 cuts apparatus. So you could see why they feel it needs to be taken down in that manner. Again, and also in an interesting inversion, as I just said, the election fraud and color revolution apparatus is both actual and narrative. You just mentioned CISA, right? You've got the actual boots on the ground operatives when it comes to stealing an American election. Then you've got the entire infrastructure meant to both suppress voters, but more importantly, as you said, codify that mandate. Like, yep, this is the result. This is what the American people wanted. We told you that this was an extremist movement and like this this thing that was going to burn out, this movement that was going to burn out, and we were right. Well, it would make sense if you were going to reverse that. If you're going to disclose this stuff, people like us and in this community would be totally okay with a series of press releases and press conferences just laying out, here is the evidence, here is how this all went. But in truth, that's just going to hit the actual side of things. I think it could be more effective if they just start blitzing the battle space with like SPLU and all these kinds of things in concert with each other, alternating back and forth. And if there's real teeth behind it, which that whole narrative looks like there actually is, then, you could see how they've already probably got all this evidence and everything, but it's kind of interesting to read their confidence by what indictments are actually coming out and who they're going after. Because like you said, normies, when you try to talk to them about like, yeah, there was tens of thousands of people, if not more, involved in this overall takedown effort of the 2020 election, it starts to become more feasible for people when they start to understand like, oh, pretty much every online movement is literally funded or was funded by an NGO shadow network, which de facto means it was funded by you.
Yeah. We're going to get to the SPLC thing in a minute, but I will say I'm pretty confident, and I'm not 100% confident, but I'm pretty confident that investigation was started prior to Trump. Like, it was a Biden administration investigation that got finished out under, now that Trump's in there. We'll see where that goes. Gosh, there was something you said there, and then you took so long to finish your point that I lost it.
I said it was actual narrative, so you might want to unwind it the same way.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say something kind of about so we got a flurry of like really cool things this week, right? And my concern is, are we being placated? Like, are we actually going to get to the bottom of this stuff? I know Trump wants to, but Trump is also not the one that's actually like heading up these investigations. We don't know what we're going to get. We don't know where this.
You don't know that.
We don't know where this is going to go. We don't know how many people are within the Trump administration that are actually working against him and preventing at all costs to let this stuff come out. We were telling you guys going back to the second Trump won that like, okay, what's going to come next from them is the hibernation theory, right? They're going to just try to wait Trump out. That's going to be involving people within Trump administration in key positions, slow walking stuff and stonewalling him at every opportunity. And what did we get this week? We had a story about Joe DiGenova having to come in and replace the attorney that was down there leading the Brennan investigation or part of the Rico Grande stuff. Like, that's kind of a bad sign. It's pretty late in the game to be bringing somebody in like that.
Were we told that that person was promoted to a secret, special, non-existent position, or no?
I'm sure, but do you know what I mean? Like, we don't know what we're gonna get and when we're gonna get it. We don't know when we're being placated, and that's my only concern here. Is my hopium is at an all-time high in terms of like probably 2026 anyway. with this one freaking memo, because I haven't had a single like good declassified document in forever. So I'm like,
to that point, sorry,
you go ahead.
You were done. Would this be a good time to mention the Devin Nunez thing? Because you just made me think of it with the DeGenova thing. I know that seems unrelated, but one of the things we talked about a few years ago was this idea of military-civilian alliance. The Q-Drops mentioned that, but then we've tracked it a lot on the Power Hour over the last few years in terms of these civilian roles that a lot of these like embedded Trump figures ended up taking on. America First Legal, you got all these different roles. Devin Nunez obviously was Trump Media Technology Group, but it's kind of interesting when you look at DeGenova and the people that have been in these public facing positions where we're supposed to be getting accountability. Usually that's at the DOJ, and then they get swapped out, to your point. So on the one hand, no, it doesn't inspire confidence in those people. But the interesting thing is when they get swapped out for Trump allies who have in the interim been serving in civilian roles, that actually gives me a lot of confidence, because it plays to that long-running theory that a lot of the real legwork for these things has been done in the civilian realm. And I don't think that's just hopium, because I think it makes sense. If the criminal apparatus you are trying to investigate and dismantle is in the DOJ, you probably don't use the DOJ to do this, and I have referenced the Dark Knight trilogy a billion times, but it's always worth rewatching The Dark Knight, because that is literally what Commissioner Gordon does. He devolves the authority of the Commissioner of Gotham because he needs to investigate Gotham PD. So, I don't know. It's just another interesting little marker with all these things going on that you've got Nunez doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, the one thing about this is you can look at it two ways. And again, I want to look at this in the like optimistic hopium thing where, yeah, he's going here. He's going to focus on something. Maybe this is just like, you know, maybe he's going to be the next AG. Like, who knows where he's going with this? The hope is to have an established focus on like election integrity or Russiagate or whatever. Like, he's going to be playing a more active role in the investigation stuff. The other way to look at this is he got the job at Trump TMTG in I think it was January of 2022. The stock was at one point like over $100. It's down to like $9 right now. Like, he has been in there the entire time that it's gone from $100 to like $9. And there's not many people who are CEOs of companies that keep their jobs after witnessing a stock price fall that far. So the advisory role that he's in on the intelligence community does not pay him anything. It is he might get expenses paid for travel or meals or stays when he needs it, but it doesn't pay him a salary. So he's given up the CEO role at TMTG. So either A, like, he is going to be taking a massive step and we're going to need a whole flurry of Russiagate stuff. That's my hope. I'm assuming that's what this is. But if that isn't it, then this is like him getting fired, and it's like a nice way of him. It's like Pam Bondi, like, oh, she's just stepping away to focus on her private sector role now. Like, she got a really good opportunity in the private sector.
I can hopium that. You can clip this if I end up being right and then forget it ever happened if not. But I think the TMTG thing or the DJT thing is going to play out after 2028, unless we get another Trump term, which would be great. But I think part of that's narrative shielding. I don't think you want that company doing, from an optics perspective, doing what I think they're going to do while Trump is the president, or at least being rewarded financially for doing the things that they're going to do. And I did not see the nuclear pivot coming, but after that happened in 2025, I bought back in. And not financial advice, but you know, I always look at like, what is the publicly stated end goal of a company? Before the nuclear pivot, quote unquote pivot, TMTG was a social media company that was talking about getting into streaming. The margins there are not high. Like, that is such a crowded space that it's never really made a whole lot of sense, which is why Wall Street's always called TMTG a meme stock. It largely rode Donald Trump's fame. It was probably pump and dumped by a lot of hedge funds and institutional investors on all of us. When they're pivoting into a merger with TAE Technologies, which I don't think that's been finalized, but it was originally suggested that could be finalized in the first half of 2026. If they achieve their publicly stated goals, they would become the first publicly traded commercial nuclear fusion play, which is just so crazy and hard to imagine that was not a pivot that they knew about years ago. Like, it is just given how much Trump has to do with this renuclearization narrative, you're going to tell me they decided to pivot from a social media company into being a future nuclear fusion company in 2025. So that's the hopium way of looking at it, is like,
for sure,
that TMTG is, we got True Social, but True Social's never done anything. Yeah.
True Social is basically just Donald Trump's private diary and then a whole bunch of trolls. Like, that's True Social. It's much more the other aspects of it. And I agree with pretty much everything you said there. But if that's what it is, like, it's just weird to me. Devin Nunez making this switch. And if it's not for the reasons that we want it to be of the Russiagate stuff, like, now's the time to do it too, with getting rid of the prosecutor, putting DeGenova in there. And yes, I saw the comments, John, do your homework. He's a Trump guy. I know DeGenova. I've read a lot about him, especially the last couple days, and him being the attorney for a couple of Ukrainians, which is super fishy. And anyway, that aside, this would be the time to bring him in. Like, you need somebody who knows the Russiagate thing inside and out better than anybody else. And there is nobody better than Devin Nunez. Like, he should be the special freaking prosecutor of this thing. And hopefully that's what they're going to do, but we'll see what happens. But definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah. It has the feeling, like you said, it could be nothing, or it could be resurfacing.
Yeah. We've just had the rug pulled out from under us so many times that it's hard to like I'm gonna get back on this rug.
Get Devin on the show.
Well, I'll try.
Come on, man.
I'll send him an email.
We're always doing X22 like every 3 weeks.
I'll see what I can do. No promises. God, the Wild are getting hosed by the officiating tonight. This is retarded.
How would you know it's the officiating?
Because like I've seen like 3 guys skate off the screen from the Wild with blood like dripping down their face from something the Stars did to them.
Pussies.
Not a single penalty, and then like a weak ass little cross check, and they're putting us in the box. It's bad, real bad.
Hockey, I will say, and I love it, but is a very strange sport where it's like in every other sport, physical contact does happen, and it's like sometimes it's officiated hard, sometimes it's not. But hockey is the only one where it's like, well, these two guys are going to fight now. And every time I get super mad about the officiating in hockey, I have somebody who points out that they're like, that's not a sport with rules, right? Because could you imagine if in the NBA they were just like, yeah, LeBron's just going to fight Anthony Davis right now. And then they're both going to get 2 minute minors. They're going to sit down.
But there's no sport where the officiating can impact the game as much as hockey. Like,
I agree.
One call, and all of a sudden a team gets a whole person advantage for 2 minutes. That's insane.
My point is more that to agree with you, I think they should basically go the opposite way and like swallow the whistles or change the rule book to the point where it's like you can't have a sport where everybody's bitching about the refs' calls that is also a sport where you can just start punching each other in the face while everybody else around you is just playing the sport still. Yeah. It's like, oh, you missed a hooking on that guy. And it's like, he just punched that guy's teeth out.
Yeah.
And he gets to still play. Now, I love that. I think that they should do more of that. It's just that that's what's so frustrating to me about the NHL. Like, on one period, it's a bunch of calls because a guy's stick was somewhere and guys are flopping around. And then in the next period, there's like 4 fights. So it's like, what exactly are we looking at? At least the NBA is consistent about being huge pussies the whole time.
Well, that's
they're like, you can't touch anybody. You can't do anything.
Everything you're saying is right. My whole point is the inconsistency of the officiating can totally ruin a game, and it ruins the whole series. Momentum is so important in hockey. Yeah, I don't want to spend too much time bitching about the refs, but I might bring it up again later, depending on how this power play goes. I do want to read a quick sponsor from Rumble Wallet real quick before we go on to talk about the SPLC. Little inside scoop that many of the creators are talking about behind the scenes. And one of the reasons we love Rumble is they're always looking for ways to help the creators who use their platforms. They've made a way that you can super chat creators, so we get paid immediately, and there's no fees. YouTube and Twitch can take up to 50% fees, and we are streaming to YouTube and Twitch right now, by the way. But Rumble Wallet, 0 fees. We keep nearly 100% of what you send. You can super chat in Bitcoin, Tether USD, or even Tether Gold stablecoins. The tip will show up directly in the Rumble chat. We'll do our best to read. All you need to do is download the Rumble Wallet in the App Store and send those tips in. You can also get it at wallet.rumble.com. What a great way to get rid of the middleman and help the creator economy. Big shout out to Rumble for making this disruptive technology. And I just saw we got thoughted. Yeah, that. And there's currently a 5-on-3 power play now against the Wild. And I can only imagine.
Maybe they should stop cheating.
I want to see what happened here.
Apparently they're cheating a lot.
Oh my God. It was the ice. The puck went over. I hate that rule too. God, they're definitely going to score here. I might be behind on the stream too. Probably am.
What is your score displaying as?
Oh my gosh. I was definitely behind, like by 5 minutes, because it shows they're winning on my phone. So
Yeah.
I don't know how.
I was like, you seem pretty upset for a team that's winning.
I don't know how that happens, but every time I like look away to talk to you or like switch screens, I don't know, something happens.
Freezes up probably.
It like freezes on my screen. So how do we score? I'm so confused, but I'll take it.
Maybe they had a 3-on-5 shorty.
Everything's great. Okay, let's talk about this story because this is a pretty massive story, I would say. Kind of confirming something we knew all along with the SPLC and just kind of how the left works. Federal grand jury has charged the Southern Poverty Law Center for wire fraud, false statements, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. And you know what? I might have a clip here that we can play to summarize this. Look at Cash Patel, my boy.
We're here today is to announce what the general just told you. The Southern Poverty Law Center, in a massive sweeping indictment, has been charged with allegations of fraud and using the banking system to perpetrate that fraud. I just want to talk about a couple brief things here. The Southern Poverty Law Center themselves advertise to raise money to dismantle violent extremist groups for a period of at least a decade. They use their donor network to raise money to purportedly dismantle violent extremist groups. However, the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, used the money they raised from their donor network to actually pay the leadership of these very groups. I just want to say that again. They used the fraudulently raised money by lying to their donor network, thousands of Americans, to go ahead and actually pay the leadership of these supposed violent extremist groups. The groups, as the general laid out, include the Ku Klux Klan, the United Klans of America, Unite to Right, National Alliance, the National Socialist Movement, the Aryan Nation Motorcycle Club, and the National Socialist Party of America, and also the American Front.
Badlands Media.
In at least one of these matters, our investigation revealed that funds were used to facilitate the commission of further state and federal offenses, totaling over $3 million. Furthermore, our investigation revealed that the Southern Poverty Law Center, on top of perpetuating this widespread, decade-long, multi-million-dollar fraud, conducted more criminal activity. They attempted to hide their criminal activity from our financial banking network. They set up shell companies and entities around America so that the financial institutions that we rely on as everyday Americans were deceived in believing that money was not coming from the Southern Poverty Law Center in the perpetration of this scheme and fraud, but rather fictitious entities they stood up to perpetuate this ongoing fraud. This is a serious and egregious violation of a group that purported to dismantle violent extremist groups, but in turn actually only fueled the hatred. This is an
So just to summarize what the other lesser known Patel is saying, what we have here is the SPLC taking in money under the guise of like, hey, we're going to fight domestic extremism, white supremacy, all these terrible, terrible things. But what they were really doing was funding and fomenting those exact activities. And what I likened it to earlier today on my show is, you know how we've been telling you guys now for a little while that people have been accusing us of buying views on our platforms, and then on the flip side, they're the ones buying the views against us on our platform to further continue it. That's essentially what this is. These are the arsonists out here starting fires and then fundraising so they can go put it out. But then I think it's worse than
literally fundraising,
yeah,
which is also happening in our opposition.
Yes, that too. Legal funds.
Like it's almost like it's the exact same playbook.
Exact same playbook. This is my favorite template right here. F-37. This is like one of the people that they called informants, but the FBI, like these are what do they call them?
They're operatives, really.
Field sources. But yeah, they're operatives. F-37 was a member of the online leadership chat group that planned the 2017 Unite the Right event in Charlottesville, Virginia, and attended the event at the direction of the SPLC. He made racist postings, I guess he or she, racist postings under the supervision of the SPLC and helped coordinate transportation to the event for several attendees. Between 2015 and 2023, the SPLC secretly paid F-37 more than $270,000.
To be a shit poster.
Yeah, and to like lead this stuff. The Unite the Right event was used against Trump for years. Like they barely just started acknowledging that Trump like didn't, what was it, the very fine people on both sides hoax?
Yeah.
Like where he totally condemned them and all that stuff. They just finally kind of started acknowledging that. The thing that I hope this investigation gets to, because the behavior itself, it's like, it's kind of obvious. You know, the left is, you know, pretending to fight all these issues, but really they're the ones doing it and fomenting it. It's totally fabricated, blown out of proportion, all these things. But the fact that the media, I think, was in on this stuff, and the intelligence community as well, in a lot of ways, I think there's a lot more coordination behind the scenes with a lot of these efforts, and that's where I want to see this investigation go, if they can get that far. But yeah, this is I wouldn't say that it's shocking. It's more shocking to me that they actually like did this investigation and indicted some people. It's not shocking that it was happening. I think we all kind of assumed it was. Like, look at Patriot Front. Those weren't patriots or people that are part of the mega movement. We knew those were like feds the whole time. That's essentially what this is.
You just hit on exactly my biggest takeaway from it. And this, I'll admit, this story, you know, we might have some sort of nearsightedness on tunnel vision, because it kind of is adjacent to a lot of what we do. And when I say we, I don't just mean us at Badlands, but a lot of you guys in the chat and people that are kind of like, you know, you fancy yourselves info warriors. You've been digging into this stuff. You've been in these online communities. You've been in Telegram groups and chat groups on Rumble and all this shit, you know, going back, some of you going back a decade, etc. on Facebook. I was joking about Facebook groups earlier, but it's a real thing. There was a lot of real organic organizing going on Facebook 10 years ago. In the early Trump days, especially during 2020, and then we all got purged, all that kind of stuff. Well, some of us got purged. But there's a few ways to look at this. The surface level reading that's still highly positive, and I think this is one of the more encouraging stories to me personally that I've seen in a long time. And I think it's because it is demonstrating actual action. And I know that this isn't like the unraveling of the election fraud apparatus yet, and this isn't the mass arrests. This isn't like Black Hawk helicopters and all that shit. But honestly, it might be targeting, it is representing real justice or action on what I consider the most subversive and difficult to stop aspect of this color revolution playbook. The reason I said it's nearsighted is because like we're a little biased. But I hope to your last point there, where you talk about fronts and how, you know, we call people feds. I hope that people who have doubted us start to understand the paranoia that comes with doing this is a feature based on a long track record of advanced pattern recognition. That's how most of us, including a lot of you guys, got into this stuff. That's how we got into this stuff. And that's how a lot of you guys found us in this stuff, is advanced pattern recognition. Well, here's an example. When a few quote unquote Q accounts come into our chats at the beginning of every fucking show, every night for years, and immediately start
not using their sock accounts
and start harassing us. Whatever you think about the drops and all of that stuff, that is not normal behavior. We might hate some of these people. I have never gone into the chat of anybody in that world and said anything. Never mind, like, to set your calendar to 10:30 p.m. Eastern twice a week and get in that chat and say a bunch of shit about us, right? That is, I know that people are like, oh, you have haters, you have haters. Haters don't do that. Haters do not set their clock. They have lives, they have other things going on. It is coordinated. It is coordinated at to a level that makes us seem paranoid when we talk about it. We've got lawfare coming at John and this company. We've got troll accounts. We've got
speaking of that and funding, like how
is that still going on? That's certainly a question John's been asking himself for a while now. And maybe we'll get some answers to these things. Hopefully we'll get some answers to these things. But that's why this stuff, besides the fact that I think it's really positive to see this kind of stuff for everybody in the larger truth community and digital battle space, to be like, I fucking knew that there were glowies everywhere. You guys have been using us, hearing us use that terminology for years. So on the one hand, for us personally at Badlands, I believe, I do not know, but I believe, based on a lot of different things, that we have a paid operative group that has been harassing us for a couple of years now, and that some of
launch.
Yep, right at our launch, and that unfortunately some of our audience did buy into and assisted, and that's how color revolutions work. That's how this apparatus works. You mentioned the example that it mentions in this memo or in this release, right? The Patriot Front group, I think it was. No, Unite the Right. So you mentioned Patriot Front as well, but Unite the Right as one example. I bet you 99% of the boots on the ground people that were there were earnest. That doesn't mean they didn't commit crimes, but just like J6, they were there for the right reasons. But the foundation of the event was a color revolution, which is why, and we have taken a lot of shit for these stances for years of saying, when for example, I'm not going to name the name, but when a new digital group comes out of nowhere and everyone in our audience is blasting links to me. Have you seen this rant by this old lady? Have you seen she's talking about the Bank of London and all this kind of stuff? And I'm like, I don't know what the truth is with a lot of these groups. But I do know my alarms go off whenever a group I have never heard of starts getting blitzed into everything I talk about and everybody telling me to share their stuff, especially when they are trying to funnel everybody into a very myopic view of what we talk about. And that is what these things are. As we've been saying for months, especially this year, it's been a theme. They pretend to be you, and a lot of the most shit we've taken, even from our earnest, good audience, is for being highly skeptical over people that purport to be us. And this shows that. So I hope that this is the beginning of an unraveling here. And I hope it takes down media members and groups and all the rest of it. And I think what people are going to focus on is this Unite the Right thing. They're going to think about riots, right? They're going to think about Charlottesville. They're going to think about J6. But as this states, these things start online. As I've been saying for years, what is the biggest online conspiracy community? The biggest one is the Q community. That does not mean it's bad. It means that by definition, it has been infiltrated. And all of you need to keep that in mind, which is why we are so skeptical of things. It is literally the most monetized conspiracy community on the internet, which means we're going to find out, I hope, we're going to find out that some of the people that are in that community and that are leading that community probably have been paid to do so.
Yeah, this makes me think of, and everything you said there makes me think of, like, you remember was it Jocelyn Benson? Was she the governor, or Whitmer of Michigan? Whoever the governor was, and there was this like whole plot to kidnap her.
Right.
And it turned out being like, there's like 4 FBI informants and 1.
It was like 6
dude.
feds and 2 regular guys.
And the feds were like, let's go do this, go do all this stuff. And then like they arrested the 2 people who were like tagging along to do the thing that the feds wanted to do. And then the narrative that they went along with against Trump and against the MAGA movement, that's like essentially what this is. And that's how all the attacks against Badlands work. And I know it's like whenever we talk about this stuff, I almost get sick to my own stomach. Like, man, we are complaining about this way too much, and we really don't let it doesn't bug us or anything. But when there's so many examples that come up in the news cycle that are like, man, this is very like well correlated to what we're doing. We need to talk about this, but it's very real to us too. Like literally, guys, lawsuit against me and Badlands, literally trying to take away everything that we've built here, trying to take away our community. And then all along the way, we have these people that are surrounding it on the periphery, like going on shows with that person, and people that were on Badlands, like subtly and slowly lying and chipping away at what we've built here. It's all very coordinated, and a lot of these people are retarded too. That's the thing. It's like they could not have come up with this themselves. And also, how do they fund it? Like
most of them are drug addicts too, which is not even just me taking a shot. It's like a real pattern of behavior. If we're going to start seeing this unraveling and who they look for with patsies, there's a reason that I'm not very nice about that. Even though I've been around drug abuse and all that kind of stuff, I have sympathy for it. When you're not a psychopath, patsies, like the number one thing you look for is people with criminal records and drug abusers. Because they tend to have these sociopathic personalities, and that's why I point those things out with the people in these networks that go after us so much.
Yeah, and we're talking about 2 different things here. We're not saying the Promethean Action ladies are drug addicts. No. We're talking about a separate group. The Promethean Action thing is the ones who keep getting sent we don't know into our things. But it's I don't know. It's mind blowing. But then I've thought about this so many times too. And again, this all comes back to the SPLC and the money that's being put into there. And that's just by like one NGO. There are so many NGOs out there. And there's also what the intelligence community and even like the military apparatuses are willing to do. And think of like the weapon that is information and the power that these groups hold, like the power that a Badlands holds in terms of our audience and the support system we have and the groups that we have and the value of like destroying that to the enemy. Like why they would want to do that if they're willing to invest money in somebody like whoever F-37 is to do a chat group and to unite the right event and then use that to like spin off all these narratives and whatnot. Like, of course they're willing to fund and insert people into a Q movement or a movement like Badlands and all that stuff. Of course. Like that's not even, it's just a matter of whether or not
it's not even a stretch.
it's just a matter of when or if we'll ever figure out who those people are. Mm-hmm. That's the question, is when or if we'll ever figure it out. But until we do, and if that's even if we don't know, maybe we never figure it out. But that's why you always have to be like thinking critically about these people, especially the ones that feed all of your confirmation biases. That is not normal. That is like psychopathic behavior. Like nobody operates that way in real life. Not everything. That's not real life. And so the only people doing that are doing it for ulterior motives. Either they're grifting or they're fucking lying to you to keep you like engaged and away from something as some sort of like controlled oppo dynamic. Like that is not natural.
Yeah, well, you mentioned both points there, and I think it's key with this F-37 template. And that is, I think, what they're laying out, which is another thing I find encouraging. They're like, hey, remember that really controversial? They could have picked any number of things. But again, when you're talking about a timed rollout, this is one of the original, I would say, like MAGA is an extremist group psyops was Charlottesville. So I think it's notable and encouraging that is where we're starting here with an unraveling of this color revolution sort of apparatus. But it lays out a template. And again, the key is, and this goes with the digital communities as well, the online communities, it's not to say everyone popping into our chats harassing us is a paid operative. No. It's to say that you only need the person writing the checks, and there are people writing the checks, to know what's going on. The other people can be earnest drug abusing psychopaths, right? Like they could just be like, hey, I started this Q channel. I'm getting all this stuff. This guy wants to pay me a bunch of money and really hates those people over there. So, you don't even need to go far. And I bet when we see a lot of these things unravel, and maybe we'll see court cases about this kind of stuff, with Charlottesville, etc. J6, you got to imagine that they
100%.
want to build up to that, like 100%. As a big national reveal type of thing, I hope. And if we get like trials and a lot of public disclosure on that, I bet you're going to see a lot of people who are earnest participant who are like, I didn't know that we were getting money from this NGO or whatever. And you only need that one or two guys. And it turns out that one or two people are probably the ones that were coordinating the directed action of a lot of the people below them. That doesn't absolve everybody, right? If you're like harassing another media group every Wednesday night and you don't know that you're controlled opposition, then you're still just a psychopath, or you have bad incentive structures. But yeah, there's some coordination with these things. And as you said, we just came off of GART. There's a reason that they want to destabilize the online groups, but the reason they want to destabilize the online movements is because they are afraid that the online movements turn to real in-person connections. And anybody that has gone to these GARTs, and I'm not talking about a kinetic revolution, I'm talking about the opposite. When Americans get together, even in a group of a few hundred people, it creates this force multiplier that everybody who goes to these GARTs feels and talks about when they leave. And then they bring that back into their communities and they feel energized and they feel, hey, I'm not alone. Look at all these other nodes I met. You have a conversation for 10 minutes at GART and you're going to find out about all these different little sub-communities that Badlanders are building in their own neck of the woods. That's what they want to stop. And they want to stop it by first infiltrating and subverting where you find each other, which is online these days.
Yeah, makes total sense. And again, my point, I would bet so much money that I don't have on the fact that there were people inserted into the Q movement. And I think of like what they've done with Media Matters comes to mind. Like how many times they've tried to associate me with the Q stuff, even though I've never read the drops. And
you're an official. What's your latest title?
I'm the leading Q promoting adjacent figure. Right. And that's three different, including New York Times. It's in there.
Qualifiers, right?
Yeah, 3 different qualifiers. But like, how many times it's the same template, right? Like the way Media Matters does it and talks about the Q movement and stuff. Like it shows the power of the Q movement, but also the way that they'll insert figures. Like QAnon Shaman comes to mind, and I'm not saying it's for sure, but like. You have somebody who's totally off the rails to give it a bad look and a bad name, and then they attach everything to that, and that way, when they attach other people to being Q, it's like, oh well, that guy's crazy, that guy's insane. That's the same.
That decode literally every single thing that happens in the world now. Every single thing you do, everything I do, everything in our audience does, everything that happens with anybody in public ever is now a drop. Even if that drop was something
not a
different.
Drop, it's a proof.
It's a proof, even though that proof was saying something different 2 days before because multiple meanings exist. This is why people like me get annoyed because of I'm like, oh, I found that to be very useful. Well, that's exactly the type of thing that you infiltrate. You infiltrate it, and besides, there's total inversion, which is something like Charlottesville, something like J6. That is infiltrating a movement and then literally trying to invert its meaning. So that's the most extreme version of this. The Q stuff to me is different. I don't see, even with what I consider to be Q grifting, I don't see a lot of violent rhetoric out of major Q accounts. I don't see, calls to action, things like that. It's not common. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not common like it was among the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and some of these groups. But what I see more in the Q space is flooding the zone. Just completely flooding the zone of like, man, there's a lot of useful shit here, but there is so much bullshit that you can't wade into that anymore unless you just totally outsource your trust to people who are decoding these things to you, which is what some people do.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's all so silly. It comes down to the incentive structure.
It's good, though. It's good this is being disclosed.
Yeah. And I wonder if I don't know if it's a worthwhile discussion. I mean, we've already had the discussions. Now it's like, but I know it fits because it definitely is a pattern of behaviors. They're finally getting an indictment on it. I'm just so curious to see what's next with this. You know,
yeah,
it's very curious.
And if the SPLC, I think they stated that they're going to try to fight this. So, good,
great.
Let them, because that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the fight. And what's interesting is not just the proof that the prosecutors are going to have in this case, and I'm sure they've been building this. Mapping began long ago to use a Q drop. I do believe that. The good thing is, I think we're already seeing hints that groups like this, they're going to sell their little foot soldiers down the river. Because they're not going to argue that this stuff wasn't happening, in my opinion. They're just going to argue that it was okay for it to be happening. So the funny thing about these cases is that the defense is probably going to help us codify the idea or the proof that so much of this online nonsense has been fake and injected by them. They're not going to say it wasn't. They're just going to say that we were allowed to do that and we had good intentions by pretending to be MAGA and Qfluencers and all the rest of it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I agree. The fight is going to be worthwhile. I think they're already kind of like prefacing it like, well, they're just informants, like they weren't actually doing anything bad. But I think, you know, the reason, there's a good reason. Like sometimes you see these speaking indictments where they outline the whole conspiracy, and I think those are the ones where you don't have a case, right? So it's not necessarily about the actual merits and like winning. It's about the narrative of it. But then when you have like, there's a lot of meat on the bone, and this is another thing, like even a good parallel for this is the lawsuit against me, right? It was like 100 some pages, just full of like bullshit and just super long and like made up detail. Like it's just all retarded. You don't do that unless you don't have a case. Like it's all about the narrative. Then we saw obviously the narrative fallout and them trying to like destroy the reputation and everything. Same thing with almost like the Durham situation. I think Durham knew back when he did that speaking indictment against, I don't remember who it was against. It's been so long now, but he came out with the speaking indictment and outlined this whole thing. And it was a huge deal, confirmed a lot of things for us, but he knew that he wasn't going to win that case in DC or whatever it was, which is why I did the speaking indictment. With this indictment, it was like 14 pages. They listed a couple things. They had as far as we know, there was the highest number F or whatever that they have is an F42, meaning there's at least 42 Fs. They listed like 7 of them. I mean, they could have made that indictment super duper long if they wanted to, but they didn't. They kind of kept to this is what they did. These are the facts that we know. These are the worst of the facts. This is why they were indicted. I think they have a pretty solid case. And we're just, we've just got the tip right now. We just got the tip, and I think the SPLC is about to get the shaft, and it's gonna be a good one for everybody to like kind of reveal how the deep state does a lot of these things.
And to be clear, for the random accounts asking us in chat, we are not referencing anybody in specific. I'm speaking in broad generalities about trends, specifically trends within the truth community. That is up to you to discern. And then other note on this would be, I know that the Doge deployment was largely seen as narrative in 2025, but one of the macro trends I think the Doge storyline really highlighted and amplified, that kind of the Minnesota thing brought back a bit, this whole fraud narrative that kind of kicked off 2026, late 2025. It highlighted, how many headlines do we see on a daily basis that are talking about $40 billion to this and $20 billion to this. And your eyes just glaze over. We can't even conceptualize that amount of money. So I think to your point about F42, when you look at F37 there and you're like, this one motherfucker in one chat group who did one thing was paid $300,000 by an NGO to do that. Multiply that. What's $40 billion divided by 300 grand? You know how many, like you could make up any number you want. You know how many of these operatives they could have? And handsomely paid. And I think that's the thing that people don't get. People think like, You really think there's this vast network that's going to be paying people and people are getting rich by trolling you online? Yeah, actually, because they can just print the money. And as we're seeing with the administrative state, the entire, in my opinion, and I said this in advance, said this before the Doge deployment, and wasn't the only one. I know Chris was saying this as well. Whatever anybody thinks about Elon and all that kind of stuff, it was a narrative deployment. And they were showing everybody, what's this? 40 billion, 133,000 informants. I mean, I just made those numbers up, but
yes, but that is a
it
lot
just
of money.
demonstrates that the law of big numbers, like you can't, that demonstrates that we can't conceptualize how big these numbers are that they throw out here. And they're like, oh, USAID this and SPLC this and these organizations. It would be so easy for them to make a large number of people very wealthy by just sitting in their basements and disrupting online groups.
Yeah, and that's like $300,000. That's a lot of money. They could probably do it for a lot less. They probably do it for a lot less.
A couple of crack rocks, yeah.
Yeah, a couple of crack rocks. Heroin. Is that crack rocks? Heroin.
So, hey, well, this is actually bicameral disclosure because for the people that are hunting us and hunting other real truthers around in the wild, if you are you better hit up your dealer, because if you are only getting paid in crack rocks, now you're seeing what the market rates are for shit posters online. And, you know, unfortunately, I think that funding is drying up.
Yeah. Okay, I do want to talk about the Virginia thing from last night because, again, we talk about stolen elections all the time. Leading up to this, you know, I didn't hear much about the Virginia redistricting. I mean, there were stories about that out there now and then. But then we got this, this week really was like, oh my gosh, they're going to redistrict Virginia. And it was a 6-5, breakdown. And it's going to be switched to a 10-1 if this vote goes through. And the language in the referendum was all stupid and whatnot. And then, sure enough, I told my people on the show, I think it was yesterday, the day it happened. I was like, they are going to, you have an illegitimate system run by fraudulently elected people, and they have an opportunity to give themselves more power in that system, and all they have to do is steal the election. They are 100% going to steal the election and give themselves more power within the system. So yeah, I fully expected it to go the way it did. I was like, we're probably going to have like a leading, or we're going to be leading for a while, but then I'm sure we're going to get a whole change of numbers or dump of mail-in ballots, whatever. That's exactly what freaking happened. They gave themselves more power. And now we have a judge out here who's like, you can't do that. It's going to go to SCOTUS probably at some point. It's all so dumb. But the fraudulent voting system, that's what I want to key in on, because that's, again, what Trump keyed in on with this True Social post. A rigged election took place last night in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. Say it again. A rigged election took place last night in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. All day long, Republicans are winning. The spirit was unbelievable. Until the very end, of course. There was a massive mail-in ballot drop. Where have I heard that before? And the Democrats eked out another crooked victory. 6-5 goes to 10-1. And yet the presidential election in November was very close to a 50-50 split. In addition to everything else, the language on the referendum was purposely unintelligible and deceptive. As everyone knows, I'm an extraordinarily brilliant person, and even I had no idea what the hell they were talking about in the referendum, and neither do they. Let's see if the courts will fix this travesty of justice, President Donald J. Trump. So it's not cool to talk about election fraud unless Trump does it, which Trump does it all the time. So it's weird that people get so upset when we talk about it all the time too.
But there is still some sort of illusion that the people who voted in that Virginia election helped Trump compose that True Social post, right? Like if 50,000 fewer voters turned up because they were so pissed that their election system was rigged, Trump would not have been able to make that post, is what we're expected to believe. When really the president can just fucking say if our election system is rigged or not rigged, and does not actually need people to cuck themselves to it in order to then say it.
I'm trying to see what's going on in the chat here. Oh yes, Claire Cat shared this with me real quick. I want to post this too. John, have you seen this? This is the President of the United States just signed an order revoking Chris Krebs' security clearance and has directed DOJ to investigate. This is going viral. This is from literally a year ago. This video and this executive order that he signed was from April 9th of 2025. I remember because I talked about it on my show and I've read all Trump's executive orders. It just shows you how like quickly and viral things will go again and how short memories people have. This is literally a year ago.
Like all our takes from 2022 being repurposed.
Yeah. I think it's so stupid. I mean, not that it's not that happened. It's a cool story. It's just weird that everybody thinks that we've already went over this. It's a rerun. It's not even real. It's just some grifter on Twitter, like doing it for clicks. But yes, I did see that, Claire Cat, so thank you. Ghost fell for the same thing and tagged me in our private chat. He's like, Patopisha, you see this? It's like, yeah, bro, like a year ago. Yeah, fired.
Big dummy.
Is there anything else we want to talk about on the election thing?
Not on the election thing. The only other thing that I thought was interesting from a devolution-y kind of standpoint was the Trump invocation on Monday of the DPA. So I had written in my Iran series in March, part 4 of that was called Donald Trump's Energy War. And in that, I had pointed out that he actually invoked the DPA he invoked it in January, like in advance. He laid the groundwork for it. He invoked it in March, but only in one specific sector. I think it was, I can't think of the area, but it was in California. He invoked it in March to force a company to restart drilling off the shore of California, ostensibly in response to the Iranian crisis. What he did Monday was way more seismic, and I had said in that article, like, look for him to use the Iran crisis, the quote-unquote Iran crisis, to accelerate the very switch theory energy transition that we've been talking about on this show for years. This is why I've been calling the macro sort of move, or the macro framework, the reverse Hegelian dialectic, or as we talked about at GART, the good reset instead of the great reset. Trump is literally, in my opinion, using the problem, reaction, solution framework of the enemy against them. So the fake war in Iran, that maybe you think it's real and are stupid, but is giving Trump, what this does is it just greases the rails for Trump to rapidly accelerate all of the funding. And basically, the easiest way to explain what it does instead of getting into all the nuance is it greases the rails and it makes it way easier for the federal government and the DOE and the DOD to move money to energy projects and, more importantly, infrastructure projects. And that's actually kind of the interesting little note in there to me, is most people are focusing on energy and oil, and it has everything. It talks about coal and natural gas and oil. It's not talking about nuclear and stuff like that yet, but it does talk about infrastructure being the biggest need. And we don't have, basically right now, our electrical grid in the United States, we don't even have the electrical grid that could handle the nuclear transition that we've been talking about and theorizing. The grid isn't even strong enough to handle a new nuclear load. So that's what this does. I expect that you're going to see, under the guise of national security, the entire United States electric grid and energy grid completely overhauled during this second term. And that is paving the way for these nuclear projects that admittedly take years to develop, right? We talked about TMTG earlier. That, if they do what they said they're going to do with TAE Technologies as one example, if they break ground on a project in 2026, it's not going to be generating electricity or nuclear power for 4 to 6 years. So what you need in advance is this. You need American infrastructure to be overhauled. And isn't it just handy that Trump gets this energy crisis going on that he started, that he gets to then respond to?
Yeah, it's like he's creating the infrastructure to overhaul the infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. And, the short term of that, the short term, which makes sense, is he's focusing on fossil fuels, besides the fact that it's what we have the infrastructure for right now. It's also a huge economic driver. Trump can't run on being the drill baby drill president and come in and displace all those legacy energy industries with a nuclear renaissance. That's why this has to be handled so carefully. So this driver accelerates traditional energy production, which is good. And it helps to bridge that gap, I think, into the future that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and that's a much more like optimistic future, macro look. I think also in the micro short term, people are hurting and prices have been going up because of the perceived conflict or whatever. Like, things need to change. Like there's a lot of people. It's been a weird week too, and I think the timing of the good news and the hopium stuff that we were saying earlier coming this week is interesting because I think it was Sunday or Saturday or maybe the end of last week, I was like, it feels weird right now. It's like there's a lull, and I've heard a lot of stories of people who are feeling burnt out on the news cycle and like fed up with the economy of stuff. Like there's a lot of that going around, even within Badlands. I mean, G Money, he's kind of taking a little break because he's just like, man, I'm just feeling a little burnt out. Like I need to step away for a little bit. He'll still come on OnlyLands and like do a show every now and then when he's feeling up to it, but he's not going to do his regular show, which by the way, you and Chris are doing.
Yeah, we are moving Story Hour into that slot. So Story Hour is going to be Thursday nights at 10:30 Eastern. And I'll show people before I forget. We are doing, at the request of Adrian from Rise Attire, who I saw in the chat has made a recovery from his surgery. I don't know what that was, but he's doing good, so that's good to know. He's been bugging me to do this film for like 2 years, and I forget every month. But it is one of my favorite movies.
What is it?
And we are doing Eastern Promises tomorrow night, 10:30 Eastern. I think the Thursday slot's actually going to be good because, I know that Story Hour is about films and everything, and that a lot of you guys want to talk about geopolitics and domestic politics and all that, which is obviously mostly what we're here for. But that show really is, for the people who watch it, a really good dissection of narrative structure and seeding and some of these things, and just kind of macro thematic topics. I think the late week slot is also going to be good because a lot of people in our audience have actually recently been talking about they like the less political stuff late week, whereas they like to be in the cycle of all that in the first half of the week. So, and now you don't have any excuse to not do your homework.
Yeah, it was surprising. Like when G first came to me, it was like, I think I'm just gonna step away for a little bit, like, or at least not do as much. I did a poll in, I think it was the GART chat. I was like, what kind of content would you guys want if we were to fill this slot? This is before I kind of told anybody else about it. Just kind of gauge read the room. Like, what does the audience want? Do you want it to be like more political, geopolitical stuff like that? Like the heavy hitting stuff
Nobody
that we normally do? Or do you want it to be more just like entertaining, relaxing, and nothing to do with freaking politics? And there was a lot more of that than was geopolitics. So, I think it'll be good.
Yeah, it's good. I think like Sunday through Wednesday, you get a lot of that. Thursday, Friday is a bit of a come down, chill out a bit, shit post. And then Saturday, you and Chris are back to get us back into the bullshit.
Yeah, to piss everybody all the way off.
Yeah, right.
And real quick, guys, I think we should start wrapping up the show. But I want to get a quick word in from Soft Disclosure. So, and then we'll get to the rants, and if there's any other, I'll check my tabs while this ad is playing.
I am a kung fu master. Hoo-yah! Why do you not respect me? You want to fight me? I will fight you to your death. Hoo-yah! Do you want to tame the mane that is your ugly beard? Do you want your beard to feel silky smooth? You want to make it illustrious, like my kung fu beard? Then you need Soft Disclosure Beard Oil. SoftDisclosure.com. Promo code Badlands.
A soft disclosure on your beard. Many lady come to you.
Get yourself some soft disclosure, guys. It's a great way to support Badlands Media, and the products themselves are absolutely fantastic.
Damn straight.
Damn straight. What does 11 saying in the chat?
Oh, just one of our fans, supporters.
Oh.
By the way, Eastern Promises, I was sending Chris a few tidbits ahead of our discussion, and I dusted off some old articles that I used during, well, I didn't end up using them in my articles, but that went into a lot of my research about Vladimir Putin back during the Righteous Russia series. So watch Eastern Promises, and there are some fun ways to look at how it portrays the infiltration of the Russian mafia with Vladimir Putin's rise as mayor of St. Petersburg and then the president.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Also, it stars Aragorn, which is always a good reason to watch.
Well, maybe. How about this? You find the trailer for it, and that can be our outro tonight.
Okay.
We'll do that. A couple boosts here. We got Carrying the Fire 7 for $10. Says, John, on Saturday DPH, you mentioned the need for resolution. You're absolutely correct. I don't think accountability will matter without some resolution first. The non-believing half of the people will just call it weaponization of political enemies. Yeah, it's closure. It's what's the other word for it?
Catharsis.
Catharsis. That's the one I was thinking of.
Great word.
It's a great word. Love that word. Can't believe I forgot it. 1027 JS says for $20. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Joe, fellow North Dakotan. Then a couple of rants here. Carla Lacey 2 for $20 said, thank you for what you do. Thank you. John Benedetti says, Rumble rant paid for with SPLC earnings. And that is
Hey, we'll
awesome.
take it. The SPLC money still spends. Last I checked.
Still spends. Keith O'Higgins, Trump doesn't trust the U.S. Postal Service. Devin Nunez is the new DoorDash documents delivery guy. He'll handle those burn bag documents with absolute kid gloves, or with asbestos kid gloves. 15 Tanya BA tipped us $5 in Rumble Wallet. Thank you for that. Aaron L. Waters, good to see you, man. Haven't seen you in a while. I have nothing clever or interesting to say. I just want to show my support with my money. We appreciate those who do it that way. Then Keith O'Higgins, Trump is using the current 2 boogeyman to expose election fraud, Venezuela and Iran. He's building up the Hormuz naval presence to ensure safe CIA catamaran sailing for Patrick Byrne. There we go. That's funny. By the way, guys, if you wouldn't mind doing us a favor, I know people hate YouTube, but it is a great way to support Badlands, and a very easy way to support Badlands is just to go over to YouTube real quick and just hit that thumbs up. Maybe watch a commercial while you're over there.
As you guys can see, we just lost $270,000 tonight off the salary. So,
yeah, so we need some help. I'm going to post the link in the chat. Again, really easy. Go hit the thumbs up. Do us a fave. We'd appreciate it. But thank you, everybody. You got that video pulled up? I want to go catch the end of the wild game. You put in the chat.
All right, do your homework, people. You got time. Eastern Promises, 10:30. And you know what? Pro tip for Story Hour viewers. I found out over time a lot of the audience doesn't watch the movie until after the show, and they actually find that it enhances it. So I don't know if you're one of those freaks, but
interesting.
You can decide if you're into this or not.
Yeah. Well, we are going to say goodbye to YouTube so we don't get copyright strike.